Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of our Relationship Maker series. I'm here today with Charles Nguyen, and I will let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Charles, and I'm a mid-market customer success manager here at Copper.
Amazing.
I've been here about 2 years.
And so what does customer success manager mean here at Copper?
Yeah, so when you become a customer with Copper, I'm kind of your point of contact throughout the whole life cycle. So I'm there at the beginning where we kind of learn about what your challenges are and why you came to Copper in the first place. And then I just establish that continuity, acting as a partner as you kind of evolve through your kind of CRM journey. I help you figure out what are your goals, how to get there, and what we can best do to help partner and get you there.
Amazing. So to say that the relationship era is pretty relevant to your role would be a little bit of an understatement. So I'd love today's conversation to really touch on how this evolution towards relationships, not transactional customer interactions, is really influencing your time here at Copper, and would love to learn more about not only Copper but your career in the past. So how did you find yourself here in this role?
Oh, well, my career is like one of those squiggly lines. I kind of started in software development, went to things like product marketing, sales, and eventually went to e-commerce. And e-commerce, acting as an e-commerce manager, was actually the bridge which brought me over to customer success in terms of working with a company that sold e-commerce as a service, like a platform. And throughout that journey, I really liked customer success, working with clients, really just establishing long-lasting relationships and just working with them, working more closely to figure out how we can help. And that's where I eventually ended up here at Copper.
I dig it. And so before we get down into the nitty-gritty, I've got a very pressing question for you.
Sure.
So as a Canadian citizen, who has better cheese curds, Canada or Wisconsin?
Well, honestly, it doesn't really matter as long as it's how you use the cheese curds. And you just need some fries and you need some gravy. And you make a poutine, you're all set.
Interesting take.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Great. So I mentioned earlier, we here at Copper, we've really noticed this shift in the market today. It's this relationship era. It's very much, like I said, it's customers and the relationships, not a transactional interaction. And because people today, there's so much competition out there. Mm-hmm. If they don't feel like their needs are being heard or being met, they can jump to the next ship really quick. So that relationship is so crucial. Mm-hmm. How has this shift on that kind of long-lasting customer relationship really changed your approach to building customer relationships over your career, especially in the most recent years?
Yeah, like in the context of what you're saying, that people can change their minds, and really you need to lean on the strength of your relationships with people. And so you adopt more of like a long-term view. It's less so about, hey, you've just purchased something and, well, what do you need right now? Because it's this ongoing kind of partnership where it's a SaaS model. Every month you may decide that you don't want to be a customer anymore. So you really do have to focus on really understanding the customer, understanding their goals, their motivation. You start to adopt this mindset of your success is my success. And as soon as you start looking at things within that perspective, it really changes the way you engage, the type of questions you ask, because now you're invested in figuring out what it is that's going to make that customer ultimately successful, ultimately achieve the means that the goals that they have with your product.
Yeah. So your role requires, I would assume, a lot of empathy for the customer.
Clear communication, empathy, and I think what's also has been really useful is that I've had a lot of different interactions in my career from my career path from different groups and different kind of functions. Mm-hmm. And so that if you're speaking to someone in their own words, using their vocabulary within their industry, it really helps to establish that initial relationship.
Charles, you were just mentioning really important aspects to these relationships is empathy, clear communication, and trust is a big one. What's key to establishing that trust in your relationship with these customers?
So you want to establish, expertise. You want to give them confidence because they've just made a big purchasing decision, and they want to make sure that they've made the right decision. You want to ensure that, give them confidence. So from our side, when you start working with the customer, you obviously have different methodologies, you have different processes, different ways to demonstrate your expertise, and that's often the best way to gain their trust. And then you also have to be a good listener. You really want to ask questions and listen to their answers about what it is their business challenges are, what initially brought them over to Copper, what are the different challenges they have in managing their relationships with their customers? What do they need to get to the next level? So really to keep listening, understanding some of those challenges, and continue to probe so that you really feel like you're ingrained in their own team, that they really see you as someone who can help them figure out how to kind of scale their business around CRM.
Mm-hmm. You're kind of an extension of their team.
That's right.
Just not sitting in the office with them.
Yeah. That's the best way.
Yeah, awesome. So how do you, when you're starting this relationship with these customers, how do you figure out what's the most effective way to communicate with them? Today in the world of technology, there's so many ways to interact with people, whether it be email, phone calls, video calls, the list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. How do you, just because I'm sure every customer is so unique in their style and how they approach this this CRM journey, mm-hmm. How do you figure out what's best for individuals?
I mean, you'll have emails, which is predominant, and then you'll also want to have a phone call. I mean, nothing's going to get enough information across as just speaking to somebody. You can get the nuance of their inflection, their tones, and even better is if you do a video call. So then you can actually see the person you're talking to, read cues from their reactions. And so that's often the best. If I can talk to someone face to face, and that's going to be the closest thing through a video chat, unless they're local, yeah. That's going to be the best way. And after that, you'll establish a cadence with your customer, whether it's emails, text messages, phone calls, whatever works best. Customer success managers, in the industry also know, the road isn't always perfect. It's not always, bump free. Sometimes you run into, issues here and there, hopefully, less so, but how do you ensure that your relationship stays intact after you get over that bump? Mm-hmm. So we want to be like your partner in this, and so as a partner you want to be clear and concise with your communication, honest. Once you've established a pretty good relationship with who you work with, I mean, it makes it easier to kind of discuss some of those bumps in the road or any difficult topics. And so you just have to be clear, and most importantly, you just can't shy away from it. You've got to show up, have the conversation, and then be honest. Come with solutions. If there's a problem, you're also coming with, hey, here are some potential avenues and options that we can take. Take ownership of it as well if there's things that you can do. And so it's just trying to own up to that, basically being a partner. I'm not just here to tell you that here's a problem and that's all there is. It's here's a problem and let's figure out together how we work through this.
Mentioned before, again, we're in this relationship era, and with this change on, the focus on the customer relationship, it also means a lot of times that there's also, the team aspect of it. So not always, the customers that you're interacting with aren't always just speaking with you. There's engineers that I'm sure get involved. There's the sales team still gets involved, account management. So it's a lot of touch points, and it's still about ensuring that these relationships are moving forward in a healthy way, especially at the end of the day, that is your end goal. Mm-hmm. And we ran a survey recently, and 1 in 4 people said that at least 5 team members are involved in every customer relationship. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like these relationships they're a team sport, kind of. At Copper here, when do you actually get involved in the customer journey?
So typically I'll get involved, right around when they're making the decision to kind of move forward with Copper. And that's where I just want to understand from the sales process, what we've discovered about their business. And so make sure that I have an understanding and that I can also kind of map and understand their goals. And I almost have some sort of a guidepost about what it's going to take to make this customer successful. And then after that, they'll go through some of an onboarding process. And so that's a different team, our professional services team. And during that time, I'm staying in the loop. And so very fortunately, we have Copper to rely on to understand exactly what's the context of all these different conversations that are happening throughout a customer's journey. And then after, when they've kind of gotten set up and now start getting them, trained and adopted and just kind of moving forward, that's when I'll get involved, and I'll have regular calls or have kind of quarterly reviews with customers, or they also know that they can reach out to me to discuss anything from strategy, growth, or ways to adopt a different workflow.
Awesome. So then of that, you mentioned your whole process. What's kind of your top priority when these customers actually get handed off to you after that onboarding process?
Top priority is really to have a clear understanding of what were their challenges and how are we going to help them, because that way we're creating kind of a joint action plan between myself and the customer, and we both agree that this is what we want to achieve, and we're building a plan together about how we're going to get there. And so we've both invested our time and energy into building this plan, and now it's up to both of us to execute and see it along its way.
So another hot topic that comes up today, especially in our world of technology, is what's in your tech stack. So what helps we'll call it the relationship team of, you were talking about the sales team, the onboarding team, when engineers get involved, that kind of thing. What tools do you all use to collaborate and communicate?
Sure. When it comes to getting the 360 of what have we been communicating to the customer, we obviously rely heavily on Copper. And so every team is logging different notes with different activity type, or we've all got it cataloged inside the CRM. And so that's the sales team, professional services, customer success. Now when it comes to interdepartmental communication, as it relates to a customer, we'll have that in the CRM as well. But other times, we'll just use Slack. We might use Tatango, which is a customer success platform for kind of managing your customers. And we also use, Jira for things that relate to engineering. And so it's really dependent on kind of the process or the team that it needs to support. And nothing ever beats just getting up and walking over to someone's desk.
But that could be scary today, right? Actually talking to someone face to face.
Well, you mentioned this whole relationship era, and that's important internally too. You need to make the time to get to know the different departments, the different teams, and just the people as people. And that way it makes it a lot easier to kind of discuss work.
Yeah. Well, great. So do you have any recommendations in terms of resources where people can go to learn more about building better customer relationships?
Yeah, so if you're interested specifically in customer success, there's a lot of literature out there. There's 16 Ventures, which is a great blog. There's various books on customer success, and they all focus around not only just managing your relationships, but how to manage that throughout a customer's journey and what are their current needs and outcomes.
Yeah.
And you also have meetups, which are great forums for just meeting other customer success practitioners and just discussing what's been working for them and what's been working for you.
Yeah, no, I know even in the product marketing world, like same thing, meetups. It's so interesting to learn from other professionals in the industry. Just just even how are you doing it? Like what does your day-to-day look like? Like how did you handle this particular challenge? So
yeah.
Awesome. Then my last question for you before we wrap up is what recommendations would you give someone who's just starting off their career in customer success?
So my advice is obviously there's a big relationship management aspect to this job and role, and that's absolutely where they're going to be focused a lot of their time and attention. But I would actually challenge you to also think beyond that part and also think about how it relates to the business. Because if your customers are the core of your business, you also look at how all the other functions are driven by being able to retain your customers and making your customers successful. So challenge yourself to look at the business perspective and see how what you do actually impacts the other parts of the business, and just take a broader lens. And you'll find that customer success is not just this one piece. It's a very large role that encompasses a lot of parts of business.
Charles, thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thanks
it's been really awesome to have you here, and share your wisdom on customer success. I know we have a lot of happy customers out there because of you, so thank you for that, and thanks again for your time. And thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of our Relationship Maker series. If you're interested in watching more, we have more episodes on our blog at copper.com/blog. Thank you.